Yo, what is going on, PartTimerZack here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Outriders, the final end game, and some of the story content. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was side quests and replayability. Side quests drop loot based on level, making them worth getting back into. So if you happen to miss them or you're skipping them at the very early stages of the game, you can go back once you're a higher level, and it will actually drop loot based on the level you are at the time that you do it, not the time that they were presented for you. Side quests are their own quests and show off different parts of Enoch. So what that pretty much means is that it's not going to be a rehash of the main story or a main area that you were already in doing the same thing. Like, for example, kill everybody in this area, and then the side quest is a similar thing like that, just for somebody else. It does appear that this side quest is going to have their own branching paths in areas that you haven't explored yet. Also, the side quests are going to give different examples and details of the lore and kind of dive more into that, giving you a bigger picture of the story. One thing I wanted to talk about was your hub. The hub is a moving truck. You can also customize this truck. So basically anywhere you need to go inside the world of Enoch, your truck follows you with, as well as your partners in crime and the different traders and stuff that you accrue along your journey. You kind of gain more and more people as you progress through the storyline, and you're able to customize that truck and it moves around with you. So let's jump into the end game. One thing they were talking about is expeditions. There are 14 new missions unlocked once you play the main game. You're able to play these repeat times at higher difficulty, similar to the way the world tiers work for the overall story. You can kind of do that with these expeditions and get higher and better loot as you progress. Completing these give players legendary gear with abilities. I haven't seen any gear that gives any abilities, so this might be the only type of gear that has abilities, and it can only be done through expeditions, which is cool to see. There's no planned DLC, unfortunately, at this point. Anyway, they were saying that it's just going to be the story, the side missions, and the expedition endgame, and the world tiers, and that is it. They don't really plan to add anything after that. They are always open for it. These two were said to be different from the story and showcase different areas that weren't seen from the main storyline. So again, coming back to that side quest thing, there are a couple of different branching paths, and it seems these expeditions are going to be doing the same thing. So it's not going to be regurgitated content from the story and the side missions. It's actually going to have its own branching path, diving more into the lore and different areas of Enoch. The dev said overall the game should be about 60 hours depending on your playstyle, and that is including the story, side missions, world tiers, and expeditions here. So obviously the world tiers can kind of go up and up and up because there's so many levels. So that kind of that depends on your playability and your playstyle, obviously, but that's kind of what they're estimating anyway at the point right now. I want to talk really quick about the differences between playing alone and with friends. When you're playing alone, you won't actually have any AI friends to help you out. It'll just be you lone wolfing it, going through the missions and stuff like that. But they did say that you could play the whole game from start to finish on your own. I don't know if that includes the expeditions and in-world or end-game content. I'm pretty sure that's kind of what they're saying by start to finish. I would assume the finish would be the end game and stuff like that. So it does look like you can play by yourself. You can also drop in and out of solo if you want to. So there will be an option to join friends and whatnot. At this point, I haven't seen anything about matchmaking. I'm sure that they would have something like that since they use the word drop in and out, but that could just be that you and your couple buddies, or up to 3 players, and you can drop in and out of that as you choose. Difficulty will change depending on the amount of players. However, the game won't scale down to the weakest player. So if you're looking to kind of ride the wave with your higher level friends, unfortunately it's still going to be pretty hard for you because it's not actually going to dumb it down for you so you can play with them. It's just going to keep it at their level and kind of change based on how many people you actually have in your party, which I would assume means it gets harder, not easier, because the more there is, the harder the enemies typically. So look out for that if you're playing at a low level and trying to jump in with your friends. Ultimately, the dev said it's up to you and your team to change the difficulty to your liking. At any point, you can change the difficulty. You can change the world tier. The world tier is basically determining how hard the enemies are. But remember, whenever you go down on a world tier, you're potentially losing out on higher, better loot, because the lower the world tier, the worse the loot's going to be. Talking about world tiers, there's a total of 15 world tiers. You can choose what tier you play at any time. Games take into account how well you're playing and gives you points until you go up tier. So basically, if you're at tier 1 and you're kind of grinding through enemies, you're not really dying, it'll give you points to tier 2. Once you get to tier 2, you can still stay at tier 1 if you choose to, but you can go to tier 1 or tier 2 if you want and then gain points. You will not gain points. Say, for example, you unlock tier 2 and you're still playing at tier 1, you will not gain points towards tier 3. You would have to play on tier 2 to gain points towards tier 3. I know that is very confusing, but basically you can't play at the lowest tier and then get points for the highest tier, essentially. Lower tiers obviously don't give you as much rewards. The higher the tier, the better the loot, as it should be. And once you unlock the tier, you can keep it no matter what. You don't have to worry about eventually falling out of the point system or something. Say, for example, you unlock tier 9, you keep that forever, even if you were performing at a tier 7 level or whatever. If you were able to match the tier 9 requirements, you were able to keep it. The dev said that synchronizing teams isn't required, but it does make higher tiers a little bit more doable. What I mean by synchronizing team is basically building like you go down a certain path, your buddy goes down a certain path, and your other friend goes down a certain path, so then you could do the most max damage. You don't have to do that, but the devs are pretty much saying that it is a little bit easier and a little bit more doable at the higher tiers, just because everything kind of goes together in a cohesive kind of way. So you're not stuck to the holy trinity of tank, damage healer, or support if you don't want to be. And then at the end, I just want to give my final thoughts here. Even though the main story appears to be kind of short, it does appear that you will have tons to do after the story is actually done, not just with the side missions and expeditions and world tiers. You'll actually be able to go back through the story with world tiers and do different higher level difficulties if you guys like to actually play through the whole game. And that's not to mention that once you pick your class, you actually have the option to go to a different class and do it all over again if you would like to. Kind of like the end goal for a lot of people is to do it with all the different classes, go all the way through the story and have all this cool loot and gear. I really enjoyed the chance to go back and play side quests that you maybe have forgotten or didn't get a chance to and still get good loot because of your level. That was something that I really enjoyed seeing, because a lot of people often either overlook these side quests or they kind of just like whatever and they move on, and then once they go back they actually get like really piss poor loot essentially because they're such a high level and it's like docked to that. Luckily in this game it doesn't have to be that way. Whatever level you are at the time of the loot drop is what you get, which is really cool to see. The world tiers and expedition looks to be a fun way to replay the game and see new things that it has to offer. I also enjoy that the side quests dive a little bit more into the lore in different areas and aren't just some, you know, reskin of the main story. I'm also really glad the expeditions are a similar thing and it's not just a bunch of rehash of a similar story with the bosses in the main story being harder or whatever. It's actually its own living thing on the side quests and expeditions. So I'm really happy to see that. Hopefully that comes into fruition and that promise is kept. As we've kind of seen with most of the games coming out lately, it has fallen a little bit short with Godfall and stuff like that. So hopefully Outriders is able to accomplish that for us. If you guys are looking for more content around Outriders, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing all kinds of different things when the game releases and up to that point. So subscribe if you haven't. Right now you're going to be seeing two videos. One is what YouTube recommends and the other one is what I recommend. Either way guys, I will catch you there. Have a good rest of your night. Peace.